Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Beer Blather 185. Not all that glistens is gold. We're gonna get into that in a second. Before we start, just a reminder we are on Odyssey, where we have our chat, and we're also starting this in YouTube and Twitter, by whatever name it wants to go today. In YouTube, we're gonna cut it off without saying anything at some point, because when we start showing videos and all that jazz, they don't like it. And if we don't show videos, they don't like it anyway. And we don't like YouTube. It's mutual. So just a little bit so that those of you who are still following us in YouTube get a chance to know that we're still alive and get the links right there to come to Odyssey. Come on, we're waiting you. The water is warm, and join us. Twitter, we don't give a shit one way or another. It's gonna last whatever it's gonna last until they close this account. They've been pretty good about closing every other account of ours. And Odyssey, because this is our home now, and our videos will never be deleted. So, that said, you are free and welcome to contribute to our shows by clicking on support right underneath and contribute to the channel, or the dollar sign in the chat and contribute during the chat, like super chats in YouTube, or joining us as a member. And there are several categories. The base category starts at $2.50 per week. Come on, that's not even 1/3 of a cup of coffee. So, not a big deal. But the addition of several, oh, holy crap, but the additional of several such memberships will afford us a budget. And thank you, Emery, for the 10 Lincolns we have just received. And finally, we have quadverum.com/support us to support our social media platform. Please do. We have no advertising there. We collect no data. We do not allow trolls. We do not allow propaganda from Russia, China, or any other bad actor, or crap from India trying to sell you an escort or insurance or shit of that sort. And the only way we have of maintaining this is member or user contributions. It is free to use, it is not free to run. And now that I have shamelessly grifted you for your money, whatever the result is, welcome! This is Saul Montes-Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, back in Virginia! Whee! God, it feels weird. It does. I've been so long in my golden cage that now I don't know what to do being free. And with me, right there, always with the beanie, Thomas Wictor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers, and the generous soul that patiently listens to my tribulations and never complains and always helps. This is something, Thomas, that it's a side of you, being the hermit with the heart of stone and all that jazz, that I don't think a lot of people know, and I wanted to show my appreciation. It's been a couple of difficult weeks with my daughter's surgery and making arrangements so I could come to Virginia. And I have to say that you have been instrumental in keeping my sanity through this process. Thank you very much. And hello, how are you doing over there?
Oh, I'm good. What I've discovered is that the best way to maintain any sort of relationship with someone is to never offer advice unless it's asked for. And what generally happens if you're speaking to someone and you say, I made this choice, that person will volunteer the information that they disagree. Or if you say, I'm voting for this politician, that person will volunteer the information that they disagree. And it's an unnecessary contribution to the conversation. And a good conversation is when you listen to somebody, and I always ask questions, but I never offer advice unless it's asked for. I never volunteer my opinion. I never say, do you want to know what I think? Because if someone wants to know what you think, they'll ask you. And that's very hard for too many people. I've made a vow that I'm not going to say most people. I'm going to say too many people, regardless of my true thoughts, because in reality, I don't know most people, but I do know that too many people believe that their job as a friend is to correct and to volunteer information that, hey, you're doing it wrong. And that virtually never works out unless the person says, I've got a problem and I'd like your opinion on it. Then you could volunteer, then you can, it's been asked for. But if somebody doesn't ask for your opinion, don't give it. I mean, it's very strange now that social media has made people think that their opinions matter more than they do. And it's reached the point where almost every interaction leads to a fight, and it's all put on social media. So I don't know. I mean, I've never found it necessary to interject advice or opinions or corrections or anything like that. So it's not hard for me to maintain relationships without causing friction. The other way around,
I would say the opposite is true. The opposite is true, because whenever I asked you for something, you were very generous with your time and opinion. And I'd like to believe that I paid you in kind. At least it would.
I'm not a big asker.
No, no, but it would make me feel, a little bit fuzzy, since we are in confession time. But I'd like to believe that I paid you in kind, that I haven't offered you unwanted advice.
Well, see, I live my life the way I see fit. And the only time I've ever really changed was when I hired an editor to edit a manuscript. And I've learned from all of my mistakes. I've learned how to prevent almost all mistakes from happening again. Because if you're repeating if you're making the same bad choices again and again, then I mean, and there are times when you just have to you have to be like a monster in most people's eyes, just in order to stop some crazy stuff going on. And I used to find that really hard, and now I don't. One can take it too far and start becoming a monster for no reason whatsoever, and that's another problem. So it's all a balancing act, and I don't find it hard, because when you go out in the world, you meet entirely autonomous, different people. Everybody's different. And the problem comes from you trying to cram somebody into some little hole dug for them. And they never fit. They never fit.
No, there's always an arm or a finger or something that doesn't fit into the mold.
well, we just had this. I mean, I don't watch the YouTube family channels, but they just arrested this woman. Um, she's a devout Mormon, and she knows what's right and what's wrong. And she was just arrested with her business partner, and the business partner is a licensed family therapist who gives the worst advice you ever heard in your life. It's all about how to keep a jackboot on the neck of your children. And this woman was arrested for starving her kids, tying them up with rope and leaving, rope marks on them,
No.
wrapping them in duct tape.
Don't tell me she was following the advice of a licensed therapist.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they were okay. They were worked for an advice company called Connections with an X, and it's like, there's your big red flag.
Yeah.
But both of these women are facing essentially life in prison. There were 6 kids. The oldest daughter basically broke off all contact with her family, and when her mother was photographed being led out of the house in handcuffs, she tweeted that picture with a big word "finally," and you know, and the kids were totally messed up. The reason this was all discovered was that one kid broke out of his bonds, climbed out a window and went next door to the neighbors to ask for food. And in the 9/11 call, this sounds like a somewhat elderly man, and he's crying, and he's saying this kid has got open wounds. You've got to send the police out here. He said, I've heard things about these people for a long time, and they're all true. So you have to come out immediately. And the kid was saying, don't call the police. I'm fine. Because the mother had conditioned them to believe that whatever torment they went through, they deserved because they were
It's
being
nothing compared to the police is going to give you.
well. I mean, it's just the usual. It's a the desire to exert power over others is something I've never ever had, and it caused the breakup of my last relationship because, as she told me, she contacted me after 20 years and immediately wanted to fight some more. Married, 2
Well,
kids.
she had 20 years to catch up, you know.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
I had long ago fallen out of any kind of lingering. I mean, I used to dream about her and everything. I thought she was the one I was going to spend the rest of my life with, and it turns out she was pretending. And what she wanted some guy to dominate the hell out of her, and she tested me every way she could. And then it turns out she married a very dominant man who controls what she eats, how much she eats, who she can speak to, all of that. And, she was telling me how happy she is. And it's like, then why are you calling me? Why are you calling me? Like, what is wrong with you? And it ended very badly. But I had no desire to get into it again. It's been
Right.
20 years. I mean, what kind of person looks you up when they're married and they have 2 near adult children, and they want to I don't even know what she wanted. I guess she was.
Well, I'll tell you what she wanted. She wanted to go back because obviously,
Yeah,
you say, what kind of person looks you up? A person who is exceedingly unsatisfied and miserable.
exactly. And I wasn't going to say that, but finally I just had enough, and I said, this is like we're back in that apartment in 317A 8th Avenue in San Francisco, and I've moved way beyond that. I'm not the same person I was back then.
You don't want to go back with her, and you definitely don't want to go back to San Francisco.
I don't want to go back to San Francisco, and I don't want to be back with her because she was constantly testing the boundaries. And that is not a healthy relationship. And you know, I had intensive psychotherapy after that relationship went down the crapper, and I knew, I mean, I went into it with the specific desire to try and break my pattern of always choosing the same type of abusive woman. And, you know, he explained to me exactly what I was getting out of it. And it was, as I've said before, it was mortifying. I would sit there with the sweat pouring down my face, and he'd stop and say, "How you doing?" And I'd be like, you know, come on, keep going. Because if I was going to get psychotherapy, I was going to get psychotherapy. Damn it, he wasn't going to coddle me. You know, there was no danger of me going crazy and, you know, screaming and running around, and maybe taking care of myself, which you can't say on YouTube. Um, but he was exactly right, and I proved it by following that psychiatric treatment up with the worst relationship I've ever had. And then it was like, okay, because he said, you know, you paid me to tell you the truth, and the truth is this pattern is too ingrained, and the best I can do for you is to get you to recognize that once again you've chosen the same person, and to get out of that relationship faster. Because my problem was that I never wanted to leave. You know, it was like, you know, what am I going to do without you? And the last one, it was just like I left in a day, because it was like, oh, here I go again. You know, and it's all fine. I'm as content as a person could be. Um, I enjoy my own company, but I can have relationships with people. I'm not some weird incel who's like scaring the hell out of people with his unsocialized behavior, you know. Um, it's not hard. You just have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Which,
I'll vouch for that.
yeah,
But before anybody thinks we are all touchy feely, we still cannot suffer idiots.
no, no, and that,
It's like, you know, we can have relationships unless you're a fucking moron, in which case we're
oh,
probably going to send you packing in half a second flat.
yeah, I'm not interested in. I'm too old, you know. I'm 61 years old, and I'm not going to waste my time with people who aren't worth my time. And
Mm-mm.
you know,
Life is short.
life is
Very
short.
short. Getting shorter by the fucking day. I have no time for idiots.
No, no, and there's no reason. You hear that phrase, "He doesn't suffer fools gladly." Well, why should one suffer a fool gladly, especially if they're obnoxiously, if they're manipulative,
Yeah.
and you know, I
Oh, the manipulatives. By the way, I don't suffer fools gladly. I don't have suffer fools upset. I
exactly,
just don't suffer fools in any way, shape, or form. I remember one such fool a long time ago in social media. Amazing how many of them are populating the various media out there. And how dare you say this to me? I'm a grandmother with leukemia, an ingrown nail, and I cough a lot. So I don't give a shit. To me, you are nothing but an avatar.
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't have your name. I don't know who you are. All I know is what you say. What you say is beyond stupid. And now manipulative to boot. So get the fuck out of my life.
well, that's the thing. I used to use the word oblivious a lot, but now I don't believe in obliviousness. I believe that all behavior is calculated,
Yeah.
uh, and people will blame their bad behavior on obliviousness. I didn't know, and they always know. Abusers and manipulative people, they study you carefully and they figure out what they think is going to work best for you. And so I've cultivated the ability to give somebody nothing. And I watch these poor people making social media videos about how hurt they were by strangers insulting them. And it's like, if you're on social media, you're going to get crazy, vindictive weirdos attacking you, period. Accept it or get off social media. But if you cry and show them that they're getting to you, then they're going to they're going to double down. I mean,
double their efforts.
there was a case here in California where some poor underage mentally ill girl couldn't be managed by her wealthy parents, and she stole a Porsche. It crashed and managed to shear off the top of her head. And police officers have very dark sense of humor. Somebody took a picture of her with the top of her head gone, and it managed to get out on the internet. So people started sending it to the parents as disguised as something else, and then they would like high five each other. And the parents went public and said, this is hurting us very much. And it's like, that's why they're doing it. Yeah. That's why they're doing it. If they start doing stuff like you can never acknowledge that it's happening.
No. Don't ever let them see you sweat. Remember?
Exactly. And
it applies to everything you do in life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is why Trump, I heard somebody say, I think the pressure is getting to Trump. It's like, are you kidding? This is still, I mean, the Georgia case was probably given a fatal blow by the circuit judge ruling that at least two defendants will be tried separately from the other defendants, which that destroys the RICO charges.
Oh, yeah.
And it allows Trump's lawyers to see what the prosecutor's case will be. And then they can prepare accordingly. So that thing is done. It's over and done with.
Yeah, I never thought it had much of a chance anyway. No. But you're correct. By doing this, it's destroying it. The one in Florida is not doing much better.
No, they're throwing Jack Smith's sealed indictments out one by one.
Yeah.
And so he's resorted again to demanding a gag order on Trump, and
Trump is cracking up. He's in social media. This crazy motherfucker wants me, a presidential candidate in a primary, to keep my trap shut.
Yeah.
Election interference. I think he's having fun,
He is, because he knows that he's not going to, I mean, the Georgia trial is now, you had, there's some like Mr. Reality Check on MSNBC who always explains, he's a law expert who always explains to them, no, you've got it wrong. And he's predicting that Trump will never go to trial in Georgia, that this is going to be delayed of necessity until after the election.
Until after the election.
If Trump is elected, which it looks more and more like he's probably going to be elected. His strategy of letting Americans see just how bad things could be without him, under someone like Biden, it appears to be paying off. I mean,
yeah. We were discussing the other day, the son of a gun right now has a lead of something like 50 points over number 2 in the primary. Number 2 being DeSantis with a whopping 12%. And then number 3 is Swami Yogananda or Rami Ramsky-Sweeney. With what, 6%?
6%, yeah.
And everybody else is in the lower single digits below 6%.
Yeah.
Stick a fork in it. The primary is over. Unless there is a catastrophic event, something like the St. Andreas fault cracking open. This is it, folks. You're looking at the Republican presidential candidate.
Yeah, and the Real Clear Politics average is showing that Trump is leading Biden.
Yeah.
That never happened in 2020.
No, but something I told you in private, and I gotta say now, I just don't get it. Because in the same polls, they get that 30%, only 30% of the general public supports President Biden. 70% think he ought to take a fucking hike one way or another, and that includes a majority of Democrats. Only 30% are happy with Biden. And 47, 46, 48 say they're going to vote for him. So that means there's at least 17, 18% of Americans who say, we're fucked with Biden, but I'm going to vote him anyway.
Yeah, because this is identity politics at its worst. It's not. It's these people will feel negated, self-negated if they even secretly vote for Trump. This is what I don't understand. Voting is secret. So lie to everybody. Tell your friends that you're going to vote for Biden and vote for Trump secretly and never tell anyone. They can't do that. They can't do that. And
no, they cannot live with their conscience if they do that.
And they can't tell you why they hate Trump. They can't tell you why they're going to vote for Biden. They just do it. And these are people.
But it's worse. They tell you, Biden has turned this country to shit.
Yeah.
But I'm voting for him.
Of course. I mean, that's
masochism.
Well, I remember Dennis Prager, the conservative commentator, saying that all his black conservative friends said that they knew that Obama was going to destroy everything, but they had to vote for him as the first black presidential candidate. And I've never heard of a stupider reason to vote for somebody. When I was looking at Obama, I didn't give a hoot about his race. It was his record that I couldn't deal with. And I mean, it's like Obama and McCain. I mean, good.
I always saw him as a white guy with a suntan.
I didn't see him. I never see race anyway, unless it's being jammed right in my face. And
I think that's exactly what I was making fun of.
Well, see, okay, I was going to watch this very early Russell Crowe movie. It's an Australian movie called Romper Stomper, where he plays a skinhead, and I just didn't have the patience for it. And it was like a groundbreaking film in Australia, but it was skinheads. It was like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
What percentage of Australians are skinheads?
Well, bigger percentage than Americans. I think it's 1% over there and 0.1% here.
Yeah, I mean,
or in that order.
The reason you can't find out how many American Nazis there are is because the left is hiding the fact that there's about 300 and then another 700 federal agents posing as Nazis.
Infiltrating them, yeah.
No, every time you hear about some big fight between Nazis marching or whatever, it's like 30 guys and 5,000 come out to oppose them. And
it's been like that forever. Remember Skokie?
Yeah.
By the time the sons of bitches finally got to do their performance act, there were like 15 of them.
Yeah, exactly. And
there were way more cops than marchers.
There's certain things that are never going to happen in the United States. One, the Nazis will take over. Two, the the communists will take over. I hear people say it all the time that, we're dealing with Marxism. We're not. We're dealing with
We're not.
fascism. We're dealing with corporatism, but it's not. It's not German style Nazism. It's not.
No, no. It's American style fascism which predates Italian fascism.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just in case people here in the 1920s with the Wilsonian shit, uh, the name that the fascist party in America took was progressive.
Yeah.
And progressivism was a fascist movement from the early 1920s till today. And you had, every American fascist party, including those run by Master Antonio, by Kermit Roosevelt, they were always the Progressive Party, American Progressive Party, Progressive Party. And it's its own brand of fascism. And it owes more to homegrown cretins than imports. One may, from time to time, and I do, compare these shitheads to, say, Mussolini, so that people can understand better. Because they are, unfortunately, people are way more familiar with Mussolini than with Wilson.
Yeah. But okay, there was a fascist movement called the Silver Shirts that existed prior to World War II. And FBI had a file on them, and it's classified to this day because there were apparently some big names in it.
Oh, yeah.
The Silver Shirts were building a compound above Santa Monica, somewhere in Santa Monica. They managed to raise enough money to build a fence, and you can just walk right through it today. They built a water cistern that's empty, and they built servants' quarters that the people who own the property had to move into. They couldn't, despite them having a secret, a classified FBI file, they were never able to raise enough money to build their stunning, fascist headquarters
Yeah.
because nobody was contributing to them. So, and after the day after Pearl Harbor, the whole place was raided and shut down. Plus, they were idiots. They unknowingly hired a black man to design their fancy wrought iron gate, and he did a great job, but they never knew he was black. And so they were idiots.
This is
And
like the sheriff infiltrating the Klan in Blazing Saddles.
yeah, exactly. It's so the real problems, as Trump pointed out, Trump and JD Vance are the only ones who support the UAW workers, but not the leadership. And Trump was saying that they're being sold down the river by their leadership in cahoots with Biden, because in another 3 years, there aren't going to be enough workers left to have a union because the car companies are basically being forced by the government to switch over to electric cars, and we're
And the
going.
electric plants are not in Detroit, they're in states with right to work.
Well, the
Or in
electric
China.
cars are all going to be built in China.
Yeah.
So they're already laying off, tons of workers at Ford. Um, it's a disaster, and like you said, okay, asking for a 46% wage increase is not possible at this. I mean, getting a 46% wage increase is not possible. But on the other hand, um, while car companies are being forced to build electric cars that aren't okay, if they do grant this 46% wage increase, then the average price of an American car is going to go up to about what,
$100,000.
$100,000.
But it's the whole thing is put. Uh, The companies offered 6, they asked for 46. The companies then raised up to 20. They could have claimed victory. But no, because the purpose of this exercise is not to claim victory and get a few extra bucks for the membership. This is, I'm beginning to believe, an attack against Biden's electric car policies.
Yeah.
And they're threatening with bankrupting the auto industry unless there are changes. And I don't think there's going to be changes anytime soon.
No.
The union is very interestingly developing a wildcat strike model, which consists in not striking all at once, but targeting strikes to specific suppliers of parts to disrupt the supply lines, while the majority of the members are still officially working, not striking, and therefore collecting a salary, even though those factories may have to close. And if this goes long enough, get pink slips and collect unemployment. Did you notice what they're doing with this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, it's not a black and white situation the way it's being painted, where you're supposed to choose one side or the other. It's a lot more complicated than that. And at the core of it is the fact that the government is pursuing this insane policy of electric vehicles that will never work. You know,
it's a very simple calculation. If electric vehicles were better and cheaper, there would be no need for any subsidy.
Yeah.
Okay? We'd all be driving electric vehicles by now.
Yeah.
Now, since they happen to be an expensive piece of shit, then they have to force them down our throats.
Yeah.
But then you have the law of unintended consequences. In forcing electric vehicles down our throats, they're eliminating the jobs of the United Auto Workers. And they see it coming.
Yeah.
In the meantime, those 3 big automakers that are going to be facing a very ruinous strike because of the tactics that we just mentioned are already losing billions because they're investing billions in electric cars that are piling up in warehouses and losing billions in the electric cars themselves because they don't fucking sell. And now they're going to lose billions when the entire manufacturing process is disrupted by targeted strikes. It's a very sad. You know that this could lead to a recession.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, all of this stuff is connected, and just the fact that, okay, I mean, where the hell is the Secretary of Transportation? This little twerp has been invisible the whole time he's been in office.
I think he took another parental leave, or maybe trying to fill a pothole in South Bend.
Good for him. But it's this whole, I mean, it's just pathetic that, and you know, again, leftist voters want this stuff. They buy Teslas so they can feel moral. And Elon Musk is always talking about how he's saving the planet, and it's like, you know, as his cars burst into flames and crash and run over little kids and all sorts of things.
No, but he's making coin with China.
Yeah,
He's
Yeah,
the biggest partner of the Chinese Communist Party.
sure.
So much for that one.
Yeah, I mean,
But he wants world peace and avoid World War III by sabotaging Ukraine.
which is really funny because, I mean, why don't we start with, you wanted to talk about Argentina. Why don't you start with that and then we'll
Well,
finish?
actually, I don't want to talk about Argentina, but I think we have to, because unfortunately, others are bringing the subject. And by the way, chaps in your boob, since now we're going to start showing videos and all that jazz, we need to bid you adieu. And sorry about that, but right below the description in this video in YouTube, you have the link to come to Odyssey to continue watching. Please do. And while you're here, subscribe to the channel. It's free. And let me see. YouTube gone.